The sky had not gone dark yet, but it felt as if something in the world had already shifted. People sensed it before they understood it. The air over Jerusalem was heavy, as though history itself had paused to watch what humans would choose to do next. Jesus of Nazareth stood among soldiers, not resisting, not arguing. His hands were bound, his face marked by exhaustion rather than fear. He had spent his life speaking of love, healing the broken, lifting the forgotten. Now the crowd that once pressed close to hear him had stepped back, unsure whether to watch or turn away. Some had followed him for years, others had only heard rumors. A few had cheered when he entered the city days earlier, but now the noise had changed. Shouts replaced songs, accusations drowned out questions. The soldiers were doing what they had done many times before. This was not personal. To them, it was routine. Rome kept order by making examples, and today this quiet teacher was the example. As they led him up the hill, people lined the path. Some mocked him, some wept silently, some stared with the uneasy curiosity of those witnessing something they would later struggle to explain to their children. Jesus did not curse them. He did not demand justice. He looked at faces instead of enemies, at fear instead of hatred. He understood something few ever do in moments like this. Most cruel to you did not know what they were doing. The hill was called Golgotha, a place of execution, a place meant to erase people from memory. Yet history would remember this hill more than palaces or battlefields. The soldiers moved efficiently. They were not cruel, but they were not gentle. They had learned not to think too deeply. Thinking made the job harder. As Jesus was laid down, one soldier hesitated for a moment. He had seen many condemned men struggle, plead, scream. This man did none of those things. His silence was not weakness. It was something else, something the soldier could not name. The hammer rose and fell. The sound echoed across the hill, sharp and final. Jesus closed his eyes, not in anger, not in hatred, but in pain held quietly. The crowd reacted in waves. Some turned away, some shouted louder to drown out discomfort. Some stood frozen, as if waiting for something to happen that would change everything. Jesus was lifted up, suspended between earth and sky. From a distance, he looked small. From close, unbearably human. Time stretched. Pain deepened. Breath became harder. This was the moment when curses would have been understandable. Rage would have made sense. Silence would have been expected. Instead, Jesus spoke. His voice was weak, but clear enough for those closest to hear. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." The words did not thunder. They did not accuse. They did not demand anything in return. They were spoken as a simple truth. The soldiers paused. One of them looked up, confused. He had heard men beg for mercy. He had heard threats of revenge. He had never heard forgiveness offered to the ones holding the hammer. The crowd quieted, not because they understood, but because something unexpected had entered the air. Forgiveness is unsettling when people expect judgment. Jesus was not speaking only about the soldiers. He was speaking about the crowd, the leaders, the friends who had fled, the systems that feared change, the ordinary people swept into violence by momentum and fear. He was speaking about humanity. As the hours passed, mockery continued. Some challenged him to save himself. Others repeated rumors and accusations. But even as his strength faded, Jesus remained present. He noticed the suffering around him, not just his own. He saw his mother standing nearby, her face marked by grief too deep for tears. He saw one of his closest followers trying to be brave, failing, and staying anyway. Jesus spoke again, not to defend himself, but to care for others. Even in his final hours, his attention was outward. Above him, a sign declared his crime. King of the Jews. It was meant as irony, a final insult, yet in ways no one present could fully grasp. It was truer than the men who placed it understood. As the sun lowered, shadows lengthened, the temperature dropped, the crowd thinned. People had lives to return to, meals to prepare, distractions to reclaim. History was happening, but most people went home. The soldiers stayed. They always did. One of them, older than the others, leaned on his spear and watched Jesus carefully. Something about this execution felt different. not because of the pain, but because of the absence of hatred. The soldier had grown up in violence. He had learned that power came from fear, that survival required hardness, yet here was a man with no power, no army, no escape, offering forgiveness instead of resentment. It unsettled him. Jesus struggled for breath. Each moment required effort, yet even now, there was no bitterness in his eyes, only sorrow, not for himself, but for the world that needed forgiveness and rarely understood it. When he spoke again, it was not loud, it was not dramatic, it was simply honest. He entrusted his spirit to God, not as an escape, but as an act of trust. Then, quietly, he was gone. There was no explosion, no immediate miracle, just silence. The ground seemed to hold its breath. The soldier lowered his spear. Something had shifted inside him. He could not explain it, but he knew this death mattered. Surely this man was righteous. He whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. The crowd dispersed. The hill emptied. The crosses remained. But the words lingered. Forgive them. In the days that followed, those words began to spread in ways no one expected. The soldiers remembered them. One of them could not sleep. He kept hearing the voice. Not accusing, not condemning, forgiving. A religious leader replayed the moment in his mind, unsettled by the calm on Jesus' face. He had expected defiance. He had not expected mercy. A man who had shouted with the crowd felt a strange weight in his chest days later. He had not known why he shouted. He only knew that he had. Forgiveness has a way of returning to the speaker long after the sound fades. For the followers of Jesus, the memory was unbearable at first. Guilt mixed with grief. They had believed he would change the world. And now he was gone. Or so they thought. But forgiveness does not end with death. It multiplies. When they spoke of Jesus later, they did not speak first of miracles or teachings. They spoke of that moment. Of a man in unbearable pain choosing mercy over vengeance. In a world built on retaliation, this was revolutionary. The message spread not because it was easy, but because it was costly. Forgiveness always is. People expected justice to come through punishment. Jesus showed a different path. Justice through transformation, power through love, victory through surrender. The empire did not fall that day. Violence did not end. Suffering did not disappear. But something deeper began. A new way of being human entered the story. Centuries later, people would still argue about Jesus, about theology, about doctrine, about belief. But even those who did not believe in him could not escape the power of that sentence. Forgive them. It has echoed through prisons and courtrooms, through civil rights movements and quiet hospital rooms. It has been quoted by leaders and whispered by ordinary people trying to let go of pain. It remains difficult. It remains uncomfortable. Because forgiveness does not excuse wrongdoing. It refuses to let hatred have the final word. On that hill, Jesus did not deny injustice. He absorbed it, and in doing so, broke its cycle. That is why the story endures. Not because of spectacle, but because of grace. And because, in the worst moment humanity had to offer, someone chose to believe that we were still worth forgiving.